Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Urban Toronto um, webinar on the state of construction in the GTA. My name is Ash Navabi, um, and I'll be hosting today. Uh, are Marlon Bray and Gokul Picharotti, and we'll be having a panel discussion after a brief presentation and a word from our sponsors. If you could bear with me here with my slideshow. Okay, there we go. Great. So this webinar here is brought to you by Urban Racks. Urban Racks is North America's provider of commercial bike racks and micromobility solutions. With nearly 2 decades of experience designing secure, durable, and technology-driven bike parking systems, including racks, lockers, shelters, smart IoT, and charging stations, Urban Racks works to advance sustainable transportation infrastructure in urban environments. Urban Racks has helped architects, planners, developers, and builders design and implement over 4,500 bike park projects in North America. Millions of riders enjoy the safety and reliability of the Urban Rack solutions have to offer. You can reach the Urban Racks team at gta@urbanracks.com or check out urbanracks.com anytime. With that, I'd like to just give you some overview of some construction statistics that Urban Toronto collects. And you can think of this presentation as construction is down. Everybody knows this, but it's not out. So a word about UT Pro. UT Pro is our subscriber service, premium subscriber service. We track over 6,100 projects with 5,500 companies, and we track 150 different fields for each one of those projects, up to 150 fields for each one of those projects. We cover the entire Greater Golden Horseshoe, and our data spans everything from the descriptive information about the name, address, city, project description, as well as heights, GFAs, site areas, and zoning approval statuses, minor variances, as well as companies and links and documents as well. Here's our coverage area. And even though the coverage area for our data is the entire Greater Golden Horseshoe, but the data I'm going to be presenting here today is just going to be focusing on the city of Toronto. So just keep that in mind. So within actually the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, we have currently 75 projects and 28,650 units that began construction and are still under construction as of today, but began construction in January 2025. So this map represents where each one of those projects are. Each pin, these purple pins, these are an individual project, and these blue circles here, these are clusters of projects. So you can see that as well. So it's true that applications and construction starts in our database are down from their historic highs of 2021, 2022, but there's still some activity happening. So there's still some applications coming in. Applications represent future construction, and there's still some construction still ongoing. Toronto's still a growing city. I've named this chart Stable Genius because the trend for 10-year applications has been pretty consistent. So you could see even in 2023, 2024, the doldrums of 2025, the number of new applications coming in is about the same as the go-go days of 2016. But more explosive than the applications have been the minor variances. So it's true we're not getting as many big condo starts in this city, but there have been a lot of policy changes targeting towards smaller projects that have led to a gigantic explosion of minor variances. Specifically, the policies around six-story buildings and ADUs and other sorts of changes that have allowed more units on smaller lots that have led to a very, very large increase in minor variances coming in. And not only minor variances, but also building permits. So this chart is a little a little busy, so let me just break it down for you. So the purple lines here represent how many building permits have been issued annually by the City of Toronto. The gray bar here is the proportion of those that are just new building permits. This is something they're building a new structure altogether. And then the uh, the blue line here represents how many applications have been coming in just in January and February alone. So this is on a different scale on the right. And January and February 2026 have the city has issued way more applications than ever before. 4,600 building permits, sorry, issued in January and February compared to 2,900 in 2025, compared to even 3,400 in 2022, excuse me. And that's it for my end of the presentation. Now onto our main event. First up is Gokul Pisharoti from the Daniels Corporation. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen. Go ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ash, and thank you for Urban Toronto for having me on the webinar. I also want to thank all the participants who may have logged on for this. I'm going to share my screen and just give you a quick brief on what we do here at the Daniels Corporation. So bear with me one second. We are more of a Microsoft Teams company and not Zoom. Bear with me. There. Perfect.
Yeah, I hate Zoom too. We should do a vote. There should be a participation vote at the bottom. Who hates Zoom?
So my name is Gokul Pisharoti. I'm an architect. My background is architecture. I've been in the construction industry for almost 30 years now, and with the Daniels Corporation for about 20. I'm the Chief Construction Officer at the Daniels Corporation. Just a quick brief on the Daniels Corporation. So for over 40 years, the Daniels Corporation has been at the forefront of real estate development, building nearly 40,000 homes in award-winning communities across the GTA. Our footprint extends beyond traditional home building. It encompasses high-rise condominiums, purpose-built rentals, and low-rise communities, as well as mixed-use and mixed-income master plan developments that integrate affordable and accessible housing, seniors and student residences, in addition to commercial, cultural, and institutional spaces. We leverage our deep expertise and operational excellence to create lasting value for stakeholders by fostering strong partnerships, enriching communities, and embracing sustainable practices. We are recognized across the industry for delivering award-winning communities with integrity, quality, and lasting value. So this is the Daniels construction management model. We offer full-service construction management is tailored to your project's goals and scale. In addition to building the communities we develop, our construction management team works with a diverse range of owners to bring their development visions to life across all housing types. Some of the key highlights of our construction management model include mitigating risk through an integrated delivery system. We like to manage our projects end-to-end from planning to turnover. We have direct oversight of procurement, of trade coordination, sequencing, and cost control. We have a single accountable team, and probably one of the fewer kind of construction management development firms where you have direct access to, not only me as Chief Construction Officer, but to Remo Agostino, our Chief Development Officer, and all the way to Jacob Cohen, who's our President and CEO. So we're a very hands-on kind of company when we work on our projects. We understand what our partners value the most. Our partners consistently tell us that what they value in us is the budget stability with no surprises that we bring to our projects. We are proactive with the issue resolution and like to kind of handle the issues before they cause impacts on our projects. Our partners appreciate the clear communication at every milestone that we bring to our projects. And most of all, we're a construction manager that brings an owner's mindset. So for all of our partners and our clients, that's a huge win, where when we are involved in the project, we're actually bringing the owner's mindset and we're building as though we're building for ourselves. Our fully vertically integrated model supports cost certainty, schedule reliability, strong accountability, and a high-quality delivery mechanism that's backed by long-standing sub-trade relationships. Now, why does all this matter? As you know, across the GTA, construction activity has slowed in certain sectors, mostly due to the cost volatility, the financing pressures, and the obvious market absorption challenges that we've been seeing. Housing demand, however, remains strong. So the intrinsic housing demand is kind of stayed strong. We're continuing to deliver because of the early stage coordination that we bring to our projects that reduces downstream risk. We have decades-long trade relationships that strengthen procurement. We have diversification across housing types that provides resilience, and we control execution rather than relying on fragmented delivery models. Now, here's some illustrations of the diversification across housing types that we worked on. Seniors housing. So we have a long-standing relationship with Amica Senior Lifestyles. Over the last 25 years, we've built over 15 residences and nearly 2,000 units. The picture you see on the left is the development that we handed over to Amica at Credit Mills. So this is at the Erin Mills and Eglinton area in Mississauga. The picture to the right is a project that we handed over to Oxford Properties over at Square One. It's called Dialogue. It's a 35-story, purpose-built rental building that Oxford is now leasing up. We also completed our first student housing residence in partnership with the University of Toronto. This is in the Sussex and Spadina area of downtown Toronto. We have students that have been in the residence now since, September of last year. From an affordable housing perspective, we have delivered more than or almost 1,500 affordable rental units at Regent Park. And this was part of the Regent Park revitalization program that we worked on over the last, 20 years. 69 acres at Regent Park that we helped redevelop along with the Toronto Community Housing Corporation. We're actually finishing up the last bits of phase 3 at Regent Park. Moving on, some diversification across housing types, the institutional and mixed-use buildings. We are particularly proud of the work we've done at Regent Park with Daniel Spectrum, which is the Regent Park Arts and Cultural Center, which was integrated into one of the developments at Regent Park. Not to mention TIFF Lightbox, where we were involved in the development of TIFF Lightbox, which is the home of the Toronto International Film Festival, and 27 stories of condominiums sitting above that. That's a project we worked on and handed over, I think, about 13 or 14 years ago. We built for long-term performance. Daniels is a leader in low-carbon development, delivering solutions for climate-responsible housing. Our decarbonization roadmap outlines our strategy to achieve near-zero whole-life carbon emissions in all of our developments by 2030. Sustainability is embedded in procurement and construction decisions, and it's not layered as an afterthought. Some of the key construction innovations that we've been working on over the last 4 or 5 years, low carbon concrete pilots. So we started off with little pilot programs where we did limited amount of low carbon concrete, and we've been able to scale that up. We've worked on more than a few geo exchange systems. So this is integrating geothermal systems into our buildings. We've strived to get to fossil fuel free communities, and the focus has always been the whole life carbon reduction strategies on our projects. There's some slides that illustrate the commitment to construction innovation. So Daniels on Parliament, that's a project where we initiated the largest application of eco-packed low carbon concrete in Ontario for a multi-residential development. We poured more than 22,000 cubic meters of concrete on that project, which represents 72% of the total concrete that we poured on that project. And this is where I was talking about scaling up. When we started out with eco-packed concrete, we had a slab or two on projects that we poured on perfect days when the weather was 25 degrees, and then the evolution and the studies, we also fed that back to our suppliers. And by the time we got to Daniels on Parliament, we kind of got to the right brew with the concrete, and we were able to use over 72% of the concrete that was poured on site in the low carbon concrete version. Some more slides on the commitments to construction innovation. The geo-exchange technology, we've used that at Daniels MPV2, that's Mount Pleasant Village 2. That provides low carbon heating and cooling. We also have net zero townhomes that we did in the same development that have rooftop solar panels that generate renewable energy. That's kind of a quick overview of what we do at the Daniels Corporation. Not many of you might know that we do offer construction management, standalone construction management services across the industry to all interested parties. That's my piece, Ash.
Thank you very much. And up next, we have Marlon Bray.
I guess I need to stop sharing.
And while Marlon is setting up, just a note for the audience, we do have a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen here. If you do have any questions at any time, feel free to ask them in the Q&A box that's separate from the chat box. So in the Q&A box, put in your questions. We will have lots of time at the end to get to all of them. Thank you so much. And now here's Marlon.
Now it's working. We can go. So old habits die hard. I'm going to talk about the market instead. So, calling myself Marlon 2.0, as people know, I worked for one of the large cost consultants for a long time, doing construction management for a year and a half. Me and Gokul were joking before, I've gone from theory to actual real job now. So it's a lot of fun. And then as always with my presentations, I always have a warning. So just to be very clear, the facts and figures have not been manipulated to make people feel better. It's kind of just the way I see the world. I know Ash was nice and positive earlier. I'm really sorry, Ash. So where do I see the state of construction in the GTA? There's the executive summary. It's shite. I could stop there and just say any questions because I think most people are in either condo or rental feel the same. It's a little frustrating, stuff is moving somewhere. And I want to take this time just to level set because there's some discussions we're going to get into later on about different types of construction, how we're solving problems and stuff. But to give you a level where we are, it was always talked about survive till 2025. And then I've noticed the new one is like wait or patience. And the big question is till when? The bet seemed to be somewhere between 28, 29. Apparently, someone said 2026. I'm not sure where they're finding all these condo units from, but right now the whole market's on hold. And it's not just on hold because of construction. It's on hold a lot with what the government's doing, which we'll get into later on in the Q&A side. And the best way to summarize it is AI made this for me, tax to tense. Basically, the problem we have with construction right now isn't the construction cost per se, it's the soft cost side that's killing most pro formas. And it's because taxes just keep going up. And this one amused me because it's kind of a golden goose slowly melting and being cooked away, which is kind of the City of Toronto's approach to high-rise residential. They've just taken their time killing it slowly. So basically, the new housing market's dead. That's probably the best assumption you can make in terms of condo and for sale. And the goose got cooked. And rental's not that great. We'll look in a moment. So condo sales close to zero. Total sales between condo and low rise is around 5,000 last year. Considering we have a population of 7.1 million in the GTA and almost 8 million in the GTAH, we're short a few houses here. Under construction, we're half the size we were in 2022. I'll talk about what that's done to the labor market and the cost in a moment, but realistically, Toronto is in pretty dire straits in terms of construction. There's a lot of people who are unfortunately losing their job because of this challenge, and a lot of it's coming down from government inertia and not changing the system to allow us to get building. This one I love always, which is obviously Urban Toronto's, which is the crane count. Down 35% and dropping rapidly, which is not a good sign. It has stabilized, but this is one of my favorite things. The cool one with this one is, there's crane counts that look globally, and everyone's like, well, you've got the most cranes. Yeah, we still don't have enough, and we're off 35%. So when everyone back in 2022 looked at the crane counts and went, let's increase DCs, yeah, it was a really bad idea. You achieved what you aimed, probably. And then when we go to Ontario, if you look in the top right-hand side, yeah, the whole place is off a cliff. So it's not a made in Toronto problem. Everywhere's down. And the challenge you have is low rise has dropped off, which is what most people want. High rise is moving towards 66% of all sales. But if people want low rise, we've got this real challenge and a lack of balance in the market. And again, this was with all of the three levels of government all in on housing, and we've basically crashed. Which is where we go. We're slightly below this aspirational target. Now, everyone remembers the province came out and said, we're going to build 150,000 homes a year. We're going to enable the system. That's the red line. We'll call it aspirational target. The green's where we're at. So 1.5 million homes over 10 years. We'll be lucky if we're not 600,000 to 700,000 short of that, which is a little bit of a miss. I call the gap the tent zone. The new solution seems to be tents, encampment, unless you're in Hamilton, in which case you buy little modular things from California that bought them from China and pay more than it would have cost just to actually build a unit. And the other challenge we have is the math ain't mathing. You can talk about construction costs all you like, but construction costs are down about 20% on average. Could be as high as 30, depending where you look at the project. So the way I've done as a picture is there is a pencil, it's snapped, it's covered in blood. That's the guys trying to write pro formas, condo or rental right now, and that's what they're going through. Land costs are down. That has a number of impacts we don't need to talk about, say we focus on construction. But if you look about if two of the largest components are down so much and costs are still too high, that starts to lead you into we may have a systemic problem that isn't the development or construction industry. And part of the challenge is this is a simple summary I do to explain the gap. If you look at the unsold pre-construction suites averaging, say, GTA, Kitchener-Waterloo, London, versus what then the resale units are at, that gap's about $400 to $280 a square foot. Well, if we assume that the building of the new units includes the minimum margin you're allowed, like 8 to 10%, then that would not cover off this difference at all. So something else is the problem. And again, what, you want construction costs to be free? Because that's the only way to make these pro formas make sense, to give everyone a gauge of how much trouble the industry is in. And we talk about escalation and we track it, and everyone knows from 2017, 2022, it was a crazy ride. In fact, I'm sure Gokul will agree at point, it was a bloody horrible ride.
Yeah.
Then the market's crashed and now the prices are low, but we're only doing half as many units. So, and that's slowing down rapidly. And even this year, if you look at it, it should only come down about 3%. It's going to be a lot higher than that. It's going to be a lot worse. Unfortunately, now trades are going to get pushed into having to make decisions that are not ideal. And this is when people start going towards just doing cost, which increases the risk to the whole industry. And then the other challenge we have is they keep looking at Stats Canada. Blue line at the top is what Stats Canada thinks apartment escalation in Toronto is. So they still think that apartment costs are going up. If anyone can find a single person in the whole city of Toronto who's paying more for a condo construction or a rental construction in 2022, let me know. They should probably give Stats Canada a call. The line at the bottom is where I have the projections. It's around a 30% differential over that 4 or 5 year period. Again, I'm not going to get into my rant about how useless Stats Canada is, but they're useless. And then the simple math then it goes very simple. If revenue minus cost equals a margin and the revenue is less than the cost, you go bankrupt. And in fact, if you want a loan from a bank, they would rather revenue be higher than cost because for some strange reason, they don't want to lend people money that are losing, which means the whole market's now gummed up because the very simple math doesn't work. And for some strange reason, a lot of people in a number of levels of government don't seem to understand math when it comes to budgets because, hey, it's not their money. They just spend everybody else's. And then I'm going to just rant on soft costs a little bit more. This is a favorite board game of mine. I'm not going to read out the word because I'll get in trouble. But Matt Young did this from Republic with a group of developers and sent it to a bunch of ministers. If you just want to read the pass go thing, that kind of tells you what the opinion is on where the market is right now. The other cool thing is this is obviously based on a famous board game. You know, I said there's no little plastic houses. Yeah, no one can afford one, so they didn't bother putting it in the game. We have a real problem right now that's not being fixed, and soft costs are the biggest problem. Stories had an article based on some stuff ResCon and whatnot doing. In Toronto, the tax burden could be 35% of a new home. Spend $1 million in a home, government takes $350,000. You let me know how that makes any sense. Oh, the developer takes way less than that. Theirs is 5 digits if they're lucky. So I'm not really sure who's ripping who off here. But the really funny thing is, that's actually higher than the tax on alcohol. Now, it is lower than cigarettes, I'll give them that. But their consumption charges stop you having stuff that's bad for you. So basically, the only message you can get from this is the government thinks that owning a home is more dangerous than drinking as much alcohol as humanly possible. Therefore, you shouldn't own one. And then smoking slightly worse because it's 50%. So it's a really interesting message the government sends with its taxation policy. And then the other thing, pet peeve, is DCs. So in 2019, Ontario had $6 billion worth of cash, the municipalities in bank accounts doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. 2024, they have $10 billion doing nothing. Why is it there? The entire system's absolutely ludicrous and it's based on no length of reality whatsoever. I often make the joke Hans Christian Andersen should have been the author of how development charges work because he had a much better imagination than the people that wrote it. And then the great news is there's municipalities trying to increase DCs. You've seen some in Vancouver somewhere. It's really, really funny because their math's so good. 0 times any number you want is 0. So why are you increasing the DCs? And then the new obsession, rental replacing condo, right? This isn't a comment on rental. Rental's a great idea. The problem is, in Toronto, we've got a slight technical problem. We've built a ton of condos. And if you look over these 5-year periods, the gap between how many rental and condos we've built, rental blue, condo orange, has grown each year. So if you look over the last 10 years, that gap's around 80,000 units over a 5-year period. So we need to magically click our fingers, take rental units from 6,000 to 8,000 a year to 30,000 a year to replace condo. That isn't going to happen in the current market. It's not feasible. And don't forget, if you build a rental, DCs are less, tax has been handed back. They've been given everything almost, and it still doesn't work. And why doesn't it work? This is a to-scale image of how rental works. Equity is 2.5 times as much, 2 times as much as a condo, and the return's pennies, and it can take a long time. So it's a completely different model. It's hard to make work. Only certain people can make it work, and they can only invest so much money in rental and risk on those types of projects. This isn't building homes, modern methods of construction. So everyone's heard this. It's actually reasonably funny because there isn't any modern methods of construction in the list. We've been doing them since the 50s, some of them. And here's the challenge. I won't read this, but basically, if you look at all of the different types that they call modern methods and you can build in different ways, largely the restricted sweet spot, 24 floors or below. And then when you get into like mass timber, it's like 6 and below is the sweet spot. So that would be wonderful. And then obviously panelized is lots in low rise. You do see it very heavy in low rise, and modular is more low rise. So here's where the challenge is. If you look at all of the units in planning that are in there right now, in the GTHA, only 4% of all units are 8 levels or below. So that basically wipes out a significant portion of the market. Only 25%, 25 stories or below. So that's basically the maximum market size for these alternate things, remembering they don't work on every site. So we're basically saying we're going to change the entire industry by trying to build 25% of high-rise units different. It's just utterly illogical. And to give you a scale, the GTHA, if you include Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge, Guelph, London, Niagara, it's 88% of the market. So yeah, if I'm out in London or Niagara, there might be some suitability, but in the GTA, it's going to be a little difficult to do unless we all of a sudden say, let's only build 6-story buildings everywhere. And the other challenge is modular is great. Modular is probably going to work more on low rise. Panelization works on low rise. And to be very certain, a lot of people keep quoting modular numbers. In the US, panelization is included as part of modular. So 2/3 of all modular in the US is actually panelization. A big surprise for the government. Yet the GTA especially has been doing quite a lot of this for quite a long time. The problem is we're saying, hey, let's go modular. And the market's going from 37,000 starts a year down to 23,000. So an entire system that is utterly reliant on predictability of orders, where basically the market's shrinking rapidly. Again, if you say one thing and then do another, it's kind of funny. The other thing that makes me laugh is CMHC. Hey, we all want to do modular, but I'm refusing to fund it because it's too big a risk, because it's off-site. So can you put all of a further down deposit and use your equity to pay for it, and you do modular and we're not going to pay for it or help you out? Like, honestly, it's ridiculous. And then the brewing disaster we have, and we're going to talk about labor in a moment, I believe, in the questions, but there's a study done, Build issued, 41,000 jobs are going in the GTA. That's how many construction, consultant, work people are going. Consultants have laid off, some of them up to 50% of workers. There's thousands of union workers out of work. This is becoming a massive disaster. That's a $10 billion economic hit. Now, you close down a plant that employs 200 people that sells booze, that's TV worthy. Let go of 41,000 people, that's not even worth mentioning anymore. Oh, by the way, for the whole of Ontario, it's 100,000 people, so it's going to be a slight hit. Housing shortage, this is where it gets the good news for the construction side of things if we have patience. Because it's going to get way worse. This was in the Toronto Star. Drought. I like winter is coming because obviously I like watching, TV shows that will remain unnamed. But they came up with drought is coming. So I'm like, I really like drought is coming. And reason drought is coming is 23, 24, 25. We got record high levels of completions of high-rise units. 25, 26, 27, we got jack all starts. It's slowing rapidly, which means when we get to 28, 29, 30, oh, wait a minute, all of these units that take 3 years that we haven't started aren't going to be there and we're going to have nowhere to live. The good news is myself and Gokul are going to start getting busy as it gets closer to the date. The problem we have right now is we're all sat around waiting until 2028, and that's kind of where the construction market's stuck. Now, we've been lucky that rental started, but that only exists because of CMHC, and it's upon the whim of CMHC that we have any market whatsoever. So that's just a marketing slide that we can ignore, and then that's me done.
Thank you so much. So just
Fantastic. I've missed your
very
presentations
colorful
the last couple of
presentation.
years.
Yeah, they've toned down. That's what the 2.0 is. I'm way more
Yeah.
polite now than I used to be.
So
Sorry, Ash.
no worries. We are about to get ready for the Q&A. So we have lots of questions already. So I'm just going to start with the questions here. And right off the bat, the questions are, will the slides be shared? So I will tell you that this video is being recorded and will be posted to the Urban Toronto YouTube page very shortly in the next day or so. And if anybody would like our individual slides, you have our emails on the screen there as well.
Yeah, $20 you can have the slide deck.
Or just wait for the YouTube video, which will be free.
Ash, we're trying to make money. We've just said there's not a lot of much construction activity as usual. Gokul's selling pictures of himself that are signed.
That's going to be the bestseller.
Excellent. We got lots of questions coming in, so we'll try to be brisk here with our answers. So first question from Sam. How do I bid on building projects to supply blinds and coverings for current and upcoming construction projects? I understand that most units do not have blinds, but common spaces and amenities do. Thank you. I guess this is a question mostly for Gokul.
Yeah, I can take that. So the good news with blinds, the more rental buildings we do, there's almost a requirement for blinds to be installed in units as opposed to condos. So that's good news for the gentleman asking the question, that we are going to have more of a demand for blinds in the suites. That being said, feel free to reach out to us, to the other developers. We don't quite have a formal pre-qualification kind of routine for some of the smallest upgrades. So your best bet is to call some of the general contractors, developers, construction managers, and see if you can get on the bidders lists.
Great. We got another question here. This one's for Marlon. How are the policies of the federal government causing harm?
What policies? Oh, they have some? Well, the last lot, they wandered around the country handing out billions of dollars for the municipalities not doing a whole hell of a lot and replacing cash that was already available in the system to pay for things. And that right now was waiting for them to decide on whether or not, well, I suppose the House decided the Senate had to have a break over Christmas. They do a lot of hard work. Now they got to come back and we need them to pass the bill that will give first-time home buyers the HST back on a purchase. And then the province in Ontario has offered to match that. So the challenge you've got is, if you're trying to sell a house right now and someone's trying to buy, why would you buy when the price could reduce by $90,000, $100,000 in 2 weeks' time? So the problem we have with the federal policies are there's a lot of talk, they're not happening quick enough, which means anyone, even if you wanted to buy a new home, it's tricky to get into the market, especially if you're a new home buyer or if you want to buy a condo, because you're waiting for those policies to come through. The policies haven't really done a lot. And part of the challenge you have is Ontario is seen as it's a made in Ontario problem. Ontario is by far the worst of the whole country in terms of the housing crisis right now. Toronto's ground zero. So, from a viewpoint from a federal government, part of the challenge is always going to be they're looking at a country. They can't look to favour one place or another. And realistically, other than Lowerland, BC and Ontario, everyone else is trundling along. So, realistically, what policies are helping so far? So, when they start passing a few bills, we'll see if they help. The challenge we then have is they'll pass the new home buyers, but then they're already talking about to everybody. So, they just need to actually come up with a game plan, set it, enact it, and make it happen. And if you're going to take $150,000 off a home, it's probably going to help.
I guess Gokul, I'll switch it to you as well. Do you have any take on federal policies? And then maybe we can also talk about local and provincial policies that talk about this as well.
So there's been a lot of talk and a lot of suggestions that have gone to the government in terms of perhaps an HST holiday. So lots of good ideas have come through groups like RESCON and the RCCAO. The problem is we need the federal government to actually do something about these things. There's lots of good ideas, and the longer it takes for the federal government to kind of make up their minds on these things, the worse it gets. So a lot of these ideas have been bandied around for the last year and a half, but we really haven't seen much action from the government. The only things we've seen is we know Build Canada Homes. We know that they're looking for modern methods of construction, modular construction, things that Marlon touched on, which unfortunately for the low rise, it works in the low rise space, but there's not a lot of application of this in the high rise space. So we're kind of floundering at this point to figure out what those policies even mean.
Just as a follow-up to that, so one big policy question is about the role of the public sector for taking a partnership position for public-private partnerships to providing public housing or affordable housing, etc. Just like to get either of your thoughts on this.
Just get them to hand over the cash and get out of the way would be the ideal scenario. I mean, if you want to see examples of public spending, Queensway Hospital bid at what, 12 billion, 4 billion over budget. I mean, last time I checked, I don't ever remember being that far over budget on any of my projects. I get fired. So I'd say that the idea is nice and funding's definitely needed in the affordable housing and social housing especially. And if that's where the focus is, well done, because any affordable house helps right now because it's so bad. So I really like the idea Build Canada Homes has. It's just historically the public sector tends to fall on its face rather quickly when it does these things. So I think if they have the right partnerships, they do it the right way, it could work as long as they don't historically go down the rabbit hole of all of a sudden construction costs increase by 20, 30, 40, 50% versus market because they start to do these add-ons and these interesting ideas. Like Gokul mentioned, hey, let's do the world's first 50-story modular housing project to show the world we can do it. And oh, by the way, it costs $600 a square foot versus $300 a square foot. But don't worry, it's a great example. So I'm actually not as pessimistic as I sound about the whole idea. I'm just leery because the current precedent is the public sector does not do a good job delivering infrastructure or buildings, and now wandering into a whole new sector. As long as I don't want to say this rudely, but as long as their hand's being held by the right construction managers, the right developers, the right people that know how to do this, it could work. If they go tootling off on their own, it's likely to go horribly wrong.
Right. So we have a wonderful example of a public-private partnership that I think, in my mind, worked really well, and that was the revitalization of Regent Park, where Toronto Community Housing Corporation partnered up with us, and we were involved in the redevelopment of 69 acres in downtown Toronto. We ended up phases 1, 2, and 3. We built about 6,000 units. So that was a great example of the city kind of rolling up their sleeves with us, kind of reimagining a neighborhood, increasing density. So these things can be done, but to Marlon's point, we need to have the right, kind of people at the table.
Great. Two rapid fire questions for Marlon. I think I can actually answer one of them. First is, where do your numbers come from? And second is, does the 35% effective tax rate include DCs? Just on the numbers question, I noticed at the bottom corner of all of Marlon's slides, it's had the source and them, and then you'll see that on the YouTube replay when you do that. So Marlon, if you could talk about the 35% effective tax, does that include or not include DCs?
Includes DCs. That's an all-inclusive study that was done. The article was in Stories. Gokul mentioned ResCon. ResCon's been at the front of this for a long time. There's a number of studies they've done, including Kansea, for them that show this. This isn't a new thing. In fact, I made the joke the other day, if we took every single study and every article written on housing, and for each one of those we built free houses, we'd have no housing crisis anymore. So if we did less talking, more moving, it'd actually work. But yeah, you can look at those studies. They are available online. Just go Google them. You can find them. But Kansea did a very detailed one as it relates to where tax in housing comes from between the three levels of government and who makes the most money.
Great. A nice question for Gokul from Michelle. Your firm has been successful for so many years, and I'm sure that comes with from a mix of different strengths. But in today's market, where do you say is the one thing that really keeps you winning?
I would say it would be adaptability. So we have to be nimble, we have to adapt. There's been, obviously the market's changed, and how you're going to be adapting to the market change, how you're going to reimagine projects. Marlon mentioned that there's been a big focus on building rental, but it is a bit of a workout to kind of convert your condo performers to rental. So we've been working really hard at making some of these things work. There's also, in the affordable housing space, we know that the government, between CMHC and Build Canada Homes, there is going to be some funding. So, we've been working really hard with affordable housing groups, trying to look at our designs, trying to make them more efficient, trying to wring out whatever efficiencies we can wring out, with construction costs. And obviously with the rental projects, there's a bit of a break with, development costs and so on. So the focus really has been that. And it's, how adaptable can you be? You have to be flexible in this time.
Great. A question for both of you, I guess. It's been widely acknowledged that many individuals are reluctant to reside in a condominium smaller than 1,000 square feet. Therefore, what prompted the construction of seemingly worthless condominiums that lack value? What did various levels of government and developers fail to analyze market trends? So that's a bit of a loaded question there. I don't know if either one of you
It's
want
not
to take
that
it.
loaded. I don't agree with the premise fully. I don't think it's true that units don't have any value. I think that's a ludicrous position to take, and it's a little bit of an extreme statement. But what led us here is the Liberal government that did Places to Grow in 2004 said everyone needs to live in a high-rise apartment, and the industry reacted to legislation that's put in place that restricted land use. So if you can't build single-family homes, you have to build apartments. And then the challenge you have is now you're rolling on apartments. I showed the chart earlier. We used to have about 20% high rise in the industry in Ontario. Now we're at 66%. That was fully based on the provincial government telling municipalities what to do, which they followed through on. And it's actually one of the only plans that they've ever done that works reasonably well. We now have what they aimed for, mainly apartments. Now, the reason they got smaller is cost. So every time you increase DCs, and you go from $3,000 per unit up to $66,000 per unit, people can't just keep paying the cost. So how do you bring the cost down? The only way to bring the cost down is, unfortunately, the units have to get slightly smaller. And then if you actually look at the average size of a unit in Toronto, everyone keeps saying these are small. Hey, take a look at Hong Kong, take a look at Europe. I'm really not sure where people are getting their benchmarks from, but yeah, there are some small units. But if you look at the average size of the unit, they're actually considerably larger than a lot of other countries in the world. And I think the market's reacted to that. So to say, it always annoys me. I mean, Gokul could talk from the Daniels point, but it always annoys me that everyone blames the developers for this stuff. Developers react to the market. A developer who's building a condo has to build a product that will sell at a price that you can buy. To assume that the condos, hey, if everyone wants 2,000 square foot units, no problem. happily build them if people are willing to pay for them. If everyone's got $3.5 million and wants a unit, I'm sure Gokul could build you as many as you wanted, no problem. Him and Daniels would be churning them out, and I'll happily take any developer that wants me to build them. But it's called math. And I think that the math of it, that's where it's at. I've seen phrases like dog crates and stuff. It's just disgusting language. I mean, an apartment is a home. It's where somebody lives. So to give it these names and stuff like that, it degrades the entire conversation from where we should be at.
I would completely agree with Marlon. I think we did have a small amount of micro units that we're going to build in the city over the last 4 or 5 years. But aside from that, I think I would agree with Marlon. I think our average, one bedroom in the city is still considerably larger than many other jurisdictions, that have large populations and large urban centers.
Great. Question for Marlon from Neil. Who do you suggest should pay DCs?
We don't
I
need
guess
them to be
since
paid for. There's plenty of money in the system already. I just said $10 billion is sat in a bank account doing jack, literally doing nothing, gaining interest. You telling me if we had that $10 billion right now, we couldn't build a fair few homes? Myself and Gold have touched on affordable housing. Toronto's desperate for it. I think the pair of us would happily build it till the cows come home for whoever wants to build it. So hand over the $10 billion, we'll give back a bunch of affordable housing units between the two of us, and the world will be happy. DCs is it's just a way of the municipalities have been starved of tax revenue, so they're using DCs as general tax revenue. It's not fair. As a good example, Kitchener's just spent their entire DC reserve on building the Taj Mahal of community centres. But they came out and actually said it. Hey, we're building this, and not a single taxpayer in the jurisdiction is paying for this. No, it's all on new homeowners. And then they're like, well, 500,000 people a year are going to go through it. Yeah, only 500 of them actually paid for the bloody building. It doesn't make any sense to dump all of this stuff onto the home buyer. It's absolutely disgusting. Disgusting. DCs are a regressive tax and they abuse home buyers, especially first-time home buyers. Hey, you want to buy a new home? By the way, you've got to give $200,000 to the government. Why don't you add a 25-year mortgage on top of that and see how much that adds to your price of your house? You know why the system's broken? The tax system's broken and everyone's got their hands out for more money. How about you just use it properly in the first place and stop abusing the regular people while you blow money left, right, and center? I mentioned the hospital, $4 billion over budget. Oh, it happened. Eglinton LRT, Ontario Line. Go take a look at every single public project that's done. They're all over budget. All of this money comes from one place, the taxpayer. And it's kind of ridiculous that the argument is, hey, we should have DCs and punish people trying to buy a home.
I guess on that fiery note, we have several questions on Build Canada Homes. Here's one from Brett. What is your understanding of what Build Canada Homes is and what it is being offered through BCH? Anyone can answer on
I
this
took the
one.
last one, Gokul. You want to take this one so I don't
Sure.
take up all of the airtime?
So with Build Canada Homes, our understanding is that it kind of replaces what CMHC was doing in terms of, offering favorable loans for, rental/affordable housing, projects. They've set some benchmarks in terms of, what they would like to see in projects, and essentially it's modern methods of construction, modular construction. That's what they would like to promote. The problem is they don't have any definitions of what actually qualifies for modern methods of construction. So everybody's kind of figuring that out with their applications. So that's kind of been the challenge at this point with Build Canada Homes. I know that they're still taking applications in, but all in all, I think it's a huge positive for us that we have the government that's kind of stepping in and offering favorable loans and favorable financing for these. There's just not a lot of clarity in terms of what their criteria would be and which applications would actually get approved. So we have various affordable housing groups that have some levels of funding that they've obtained from the municipal levels that are going to Build Canada Homes, and we just hope that the process with Build Canada Homes will be fast so that we can get these projects in the ground as soon as possible.
Great. I guess another question directed at Gokul, but I guess Marlon, you could weigh in as well. Do you see more demand for rentals or ownership of condos?
So I think there's always going to be an aspirational demand for ownership. The problem is just the way the costs have been. It's we've obviously got to a point where units are not affordable, and then we also have an issue with consumer confidence, where people are kind of sitting on the fence and saying, "Well, am I better off just holding off and waiting 3 months, 6 months, and then maybe the prices are going to come further down." So I think we have a lot of fence sitters that are kind of looking at the market and going, "Well, I'm not really sure which way the market's going to go, so I'll just wait." Uh, you know, the the demand for rental housing will always be there in the absence of new units coming to the market. The problem, as Martin mentioned, is the economics are really challenging on rental projects. So I think it's almost impossible for us to think that we would have the same amount of rental housing that would replace the condo the volume of condos that we were building.
Yeah, and just to layer on a point to that, there's this obsession. Everyone will say, "Oh, like Quebec has a higher volume of rental, therefore Ontario should have that." That doesn't reflect what people want. There's a number of surveys done in terms of what people's intention are, and the cohort under 40, they want to own a home. And by a home, I mean that could be a single detached home, that could be a condo. It's a home. There's no difference between the two. They are still a home. And I think if you look, the intentions are significant, like 60, 70% of them would like to own a home. So 60,
I-
70% of the market want to own something. Shouldn't we be trying to provide that rather than saying, hey, you were born too late, let's get rid of your dreams? And I'm not saying rental's bad because you're going to have a portion of rental. This isn't, again, rental versus ownership, but I think there's a balance for both exist. And right now, all we're saying is no. And people are giving up. And the problem we have with people giving up is, and without going down a rabbit hole, there's a massive amount of impacts spinning off home ownership that's significantly damaging both our economy, it's damaging the fertility rates, it's damaging people's health. And we're having a major impact right now on the population of this province and other provinces that doesn't seem to get taken into account. And there are massive health challenges when people are worried if they're going to get paid tomorrow, if they can afford a home, if the
Yeah.
kids are going to be able to live somewhere. And right now, it's a little bit of a mess.
Yeah. It wasn't too long ago that, was it, Alberta that was advertising here that, people should move from
Mhm.
Ontario to Alberta and, housing prices are lower. Everything is good, right? That's, that's just symptomatic of, the market that we're in.
Yeah, and if you go to Calgary and Edmonton, they have these things called massive suburbs. It's funny how their housing affordability challenge isn't the
Yeah.
same as here. We have places to grow. Well, I know it's not been replaced, but we have places to grow. We don't have a balance, and I think that's part of the challenge. Is we need a balance. We do need high rise. We definitely need more low rise, and we definitely need more rental, and we need more affordable student seniors. In fact, we need all of it. We're short of everything.
Right.
Um, Another question, I guess, I think both of you can take this. From Chris, is the term affordable rentals merely an illusion? Does affordable homes, I should say, sorry, does none of the funding actually construct affordable detached or townhouse properties for purchase? I guess this is really asking where does the term affordable come
Well,
from? Who
I
defines
think, I
affordable?
mean, Gokul gave you a good example with TCHC. Daniels did a lot of work with TCSC over the year, and that did include townhomes too. So there are attempts. The challenge with affordable is there's some smaller groups, charities, and whatnot that are trying to build some of this stuff. It's kind of hard to get it done. And then the challenge you have with affordable right now is the numbers horrendous. Is it Options for Homes? I think we're saying to qualify for their affordable purchase program right now because they build stuff as well, towns and houses. You can earn $100,000 a year, and that's now considered that's the place to be. So I think the challenge we have is twofold. One, I think the people in Canada generally don't earn anywhere near enough. The salaries haven't increased at the pace. If you look at the US as an example, we haven't kept up. So that's one challenge is people don't earn anywhere near enough. I mean, we get taxed more. I'm not going to go on that rant again. But then house prices are too high. The only way to get house prices down is by reducing the cost of building new. But right now, everyone's so busy celebrating, doing laps of celebration that house prices are down 30%. It's an enigma. It's a short-term enigma that's going to go horribly wrong. And those same people are doing the laps right now will then be saying, see, I told you it was going to happen. And that's where we're at right now. So are there true affordable? There's only a few people can build what I'd say is true affordable. And examples are like TCHC that have been successful at doing it, and they've done a reasonably good job considering how horrible their budget is and how little money they're given to maintain buildings and build buildings. They're just vastly underfunded is the challenge.
Right. But then, Marlon, purely from a construction cost standpoint, it's not that the affordable housing units that we're building are substantially, cost substantially lower than, the typical condominiums that we're building. If
No, it's the
anything, I
same.
think, yeah, it's the same. If anything, I would argue that some of the affordable housing, projects that we work on, the costs are slightly higher because we're looking at life cycle costing of things, and sometimes it makes sense for us to increase capital costs and put something in that'll last a little longer. It's everything else that goes into the brew aside from construction costs that I think with breaks that with tax breaks, development cost breaks, that's what really pushes things towards being in the affordable bucket as opposed to you kind of tax to death on the
Yeah.
condominiums.
And a nice terrible stat for everybody, on a high-rise building, construction cost can only be 40% of the cost. So the physical building you live in is like 40 to 50% of the cost. Everything else doesn't exist. It's air. It's money moving around. Obviously, there's some consultants and stuff, but realistically, the physical bit of the building is less than half the cost. That defies any form of logic anywhere. And there's a reason why you can move to Detroit, buy yourself a $200,000 home. You can move down to Texas, buy yourself a reasonably priced home or apartment. Yeah, because Texas tax is like 2 to 3%, if that. In fact, if you say 3%, they'll be aghast. I think most of them are less than 2%. I really can't see what the problem Toronto has at all.
Just bringing us back to actual matters of construction. Question is, what do you see as happening with those who work in post-construction customer care? I guess we can start with Gokul.
Right. So the post-construction, obviously with our construction volumes kind of dipping, there is going to be an issue with, the amount of people we need in the post-construction care kind of world. That being said, that's kind of the biggest driver, I think, for, what's going to happen in the post-construction world. From a project delivery standpoint, whether you're delivering a condominium with PDIs with homeowners, as opposed to a rental building where you're perhaps doing PDIs with the ownership group as opposed to individual homeowners. I think it's the same sense of kind of discipline that you bring to the delivery mechanism. So in our minds, whether you're building a rental building or you're building a condominium, it's the same effort that goes into the post-construction kind of closeout. So I think largely it would just track the amount of units that that are in construction, and as our volumes drop, you would see that sector also shrinking.
Okay. Question here from I guess Brett again. Where do nonprofits get equity, grants, forgivable loans, etc. from now? BCH is only offering low financing, and CMHC's AHF program is finished.
Yeah, unfortunately, financing for nonprofits has been a long-term challenge as long as I've been in the business. There are examples. I was on a CMHC jury for different ideas on trying to improve the industry, and there's some stuff around crowdfunding. There's some stuff around trying to get money from different sources, trying to backstop financing through that crowdfunding that the local people can all invest money. Obviously, there's great groups like Indwell and stuff that continue to fight the good fight to keep buildings coming. The challenge is, I think that is the biggest hurdle any nonprofit will have, is that equity side of things. It's very, very difficult to raise money and then get a loan. Obviously, nonprofits have different ways of accessing that depending who they partner with. There's different ways of them partnering up with certain developers that can give them access to different financing streams, but they're still going to need some degree of equity, even if the partner can get them into a different financing stream such as ACLP or one of those where you partner up. And myself and Gokul probably used to seeing RFPs along that line where they're trying to bring in a developer, CM, or joint ventures, various of those, where they're trying to help these guys get over the line a little bit. But it's a horrible challenge, and just not enough money is dedicated to affordable housing or social housing or supportive housing. The volume of money given is horrible. Is probably an understatement. And if you look at the state of homelessness in Toronto, we're all in on building affordable homes, and homelessness is going up. The number of people needing supportive affordable housing is going up every single year, not down. So I think it's a dire problem that needs a massive investment. I said a number of years ago, the federal government should just hand out a loan for like $30 billion and then let the nonprofits go wild and build stuff and just cover off all the equity for them. But that would take a lot of guts for someone to actually do that. But even that doesn't even touch the edges of solving the problem. That's how terrifying the problem is.
Well, let's try to end on a hopeful note. We are at our time, so I'll just read a couple of nice compliments here from the audience here. So we have Neil saying, "Thank you, Daniels, for building rental in Brampton," and then we have an anonymous person saying, "I joined this webinar just to see Marlon's take on everything, and he is delivering. Love this." And what better way to end than with love? So thank you everybody for joining. Again, this whole conversation will be recorded and posted on YouTube. And hopefully we will see you at our next one. Thank you again to Marlon and Gokul for joining us. And thank you all for listening as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.